Hello everyone. Sorry for the delay. There was a problem with streaming. There was an error message, so we had to fix that quickly. It's always something with 21st century and electronics, isn't it? Just to get this out of the way quickly, here is the address where you can get today's soundtrack. scientificsounds.com/theorigin. And here is where you can go to get questions or answers, the forum for the live streams. scientificsounds.com/ask-a-question. Here's where you go to see all the live streams we've done so far. I know there's many people who are new. We use headphones at the end. We have a soundtrack we all listen to. We're trying to do a mind link to brain link everybody together. Everyone's brainwaves synchronized to exactly the same state of consciousness to align ourselves to magnify our power to influence the quantum field. Sounds crazy, eh? It is crazy, probably, but the craziest things of today are the regular science of tomorrow, right? So we're talking about the origin, the origin of all things. We go through a series of these. The last one was also talking about, the cosmic roots. This might be looked upon as the origin of the roots as we go deeper. In the beginning was the origin of all things. In a hypothetical time before time existed, there was just the void. According to Terence Witt, the void or zero or nothing is what all of this is. Nothing related to itself, and all kinds of mathematical values of positive or negative or plus or minus or divide or square root of, all that equals zero. The mathematical relationships between zero and itself is the something that pops out of nothing. The mathematical relationships, the sacred geometries of nothing to itself is this, all of this thing. It's a very Zen kind of an idea. It has the ring of truth to me. This could be exactly what nothing looks like, which, by definition is eternal. Never had a beginning, will never have an end. So by definition, that mathematical value is what we see before us. Infinite, forever, But scientists have all kinds of different ideas about what this looks like. What the origins were, according to science, the origin was the Big Bang. That there was nothing, and then there was something just from nowhere. It's kind of a fantastical idea from the scientific community, who sort of eschews metaphysical explanations for things. When you ask them, well, what was before the Big Bang, there's sort of no answer to that. As a matter of fact, you get a sort of antagonistic, when you ask what's the before the Big Bang, the scientific community pretty much says nothing, and don't ask. It's the obvious question that if you can't explain it to a 6-year-old, then you don't understand it. So probably the first question the 6-year-old would ask is, what happened before the Big Bang, if there is such a Big Bang? Everything came from that. What was before that? It's a good question. But as it is now, the cosmology of the origin of all things from the standpoint of science was the Big Bang, which caused a big explosion, and over time the heat of that explosion cooled off, and as it cooled off, the basic quantum particles began to coalesce and assemble into atoms, and atoms form compounds, and compounds form the world and the cosmos and you and me and everything else. So we have this massive explosion that forms the entire universe that came from nothing. Essentially, I said this once before, from the standpoint of mathematics, and from the standpoint of statistics, and the standpoints of probability theory, anything is possible from the standpoint of math. It's just a matter of whether it's probable or not. It's possible for the universe to have been at one point absolutely nothing. And then it's possible that out of that nothing, something could just pop into existence from nowhere. The probability of that is unimaginably, infinitesimally small. I mean, the probability of something just popping out of nothing is pretty slim. However, when you've got eternity, nothing, like I said, is eternal. It never begins, it never ends, it will always be there. And when you've got eternity to roll those rolls of the dice out, you're assured of having something from nothing sooner or later. And seeing as sooner or later a meaningless for eternity, then it will absolutely 100% pop into existence from nothing. Well, this aligns with Terence Witt, who says there's nothing anyway, and there's a simple nothing, and then there's an equal sign, and there's complex, infinitely complex nothing, and infinitely complex nothing is all the values of nothing to itself mathematically, plus, minus, divide, square root, arrays, every kind of math that you could ever imagine is what the universe is. The universe is information. It's the relationship of nothing to itself. And the relationship, the mathematical relationship, is the something that pops out of nothing. And this is what that something looks like. The mathematical relationships of nothing to itself manifest as something. Pretty cool idea. I like that idea. It aligns with my Zen mind. So it's possible that there was just nothing there and it popped in, where we have this gigantic bang, and then we have the period of expansion, a microsecond after, and it immediately begins to cool down. The explosion is universally large. It's bigger than you can possibly wrap your mind around. 10 to the minus 32 seconds, the cosmic inflation happens, this inflation. 10 to the minus 6 seconds, protons form, things are starting to cool out. 100 seconds, who figures this stuff anyway, right? 100 seconds, deuterium, helium, lithium are synthesized. 100 million years, the first stars are born, things have coalesced to the point and cooled down that things can start to, attract together, collapse together, form massive clouds of hydrogen, deuterium, helium, lithium, that forms the mass of a star, that forms the gravity well at the center of the star, that collapses into fusion reaction, that explodes, and that is a star. 500 million years. The current record holder for the earliest known galaxy that we've ever been able to see or photograph. 4 billion years, star formations peak. And the universe as we know it appears to form with galactic nebula and star systems and all the rest. But there were some very smart people in the world who questioned the idea of the Big Bang. Roger Penrose comes to mind, Nobel Prize winning, twice Nobel Prize winning, plus host and host and host of international awards, aside from the 2 Nobel Prizes he got. So this guy's no slouch, Sir Roger Penrose, British mathematician. It just goes, on and on here. And he shared one of the Nobel Prizes with Stephen Hawking. So this guy, when he's puts forth some kind of ideal, even if it sounds nutty and crazy, then you listen to what he has to say. So Penrose, he's questioning the idea what happened before the Big Bang. He's seeing evidence. He put out a paper where he saw evidence of ancient universes before ours, evidence of that here in something called the cosmic background radiation, the CMB, the cosmic microwave background. So in the cosmic microwave background, Penrose is seeing evidence that there is more ancient structures in the universe that we have. They're older than our universe, which means they have to have come from a previous universe. How crazy is that, right? That's not just conjecture. That is evidence he's finding in the cosmic background radiation. There's older structures than our whole universe there, which means that before the Big Bang there must have been another universe. Now, there's a number of ideas about that, but it's possible if that ancient universe went all the way to its end and collapsed, there could have been extremely advanced civilizations in that universe. What happened to them? Are there remnants of them here? Are there ancient artifacts here in this universe of the remnants of ancient civilizations from previous universes that were born and grew old and grew ancient and collapsed or exploded or collided with another universe? In the multi-universe theory, it's a multiverse, and it's possible for two universes to collide, and when they collided, that would be the explosion of the Big Bang. There's just the possibility of massive universal-wide ancient civilizations that just evaporated when their universe collapsed or collided with ours or whatever. It's kind of mind-boggling to think about, but it's absolutely 100% possible. The universe is a really big place. We're poking around at the atoms of one grain of sand on an ocean beach someplace, and we're maybe not finding the remnants of ancient civilizations yet, but it doesn't mean they're not there. It just means it's a big place and we've got a lot of searching to do. Other theories are, the constant fluctuation, where the universe expands and contracts and explodes and expands and contracts and explodes and expands and contracts and explodes on just an oscillation. Bottom line is that whether the universe collapsed and exploded again, and does that on a regular basis as a frequency, a vibration frequency that's bigger than any universe. It's like in the macro universe that our universe is one little tiny microscopic particle of, where things are just doing this all the time, all over the place, where our entire universe is just something that's fluctuating on and off and on and off and back and forth, like this thing. Or where universes are just kind of flying around and they're crashing into each other and causing Big Bang explosions that for us create our whole universe. But these ancient civilizations, did they die? Or were they advanced enough to create time-dimensional portals to escape their universe? And go to some parallel universe where they could find a new home. Or maybe it's a time-dimensional window and they leave that universe and they come into this one that forms from that collapse, right? So if if your universe goes on and goes on and goes on for tens of billions of years, and galactic civilizations get more and more and more advanced and start to control time and space, and they see that the imminent demise of their entire universe is collapsing, then creating some kind of time portal to leave and come out the other end of that after their universe has collapsed and exploded into a new universe and cooled to the point where they could arrive and take up housekeeping and look for another planet. That's totally possible, which means they're here, which means that they have been doing this for trillions and trillions of years, collapse after collapse after collapse after collapse of endless universes where they just time-dimensional portal out and arrive at the next one in its sweet spot when it's alive and well. Stretch your brain. It's totally possible, and they could all be out there. Why haven't they contacted us? I wouldn't contact us. We're stupid. We're crazy. Earth is nuts right now. Look at the world situation we're in. If aliens landed and wanted to talk to our leader, which leader? We'd go to war. Earth would be going to war to duke it out. Who's the leader they're going to talk to? We think it should be the president of the United States. No, Russia's going to come in as, no, we should represent the Earth. No, it'd be a nightmare. What's the point of contacting us anyway, right now? We have to get our act together. We're in no position to be talking to alien beings. Why they'd want to talk to us, I don't know. But this could be an eternal thing, an eternal, forever, oscillation of endless time, expanding, contracting, expanding, contracting. It's one of the foundation features we see in nature. The eternal march forward. The Mobius Strip here, right? Anybody ever played with a Mobius Strip? Oh man, when I was a kid, I first found out about a Mobius Strip. Good God! You take a piece of paper and you cut a strip. And you've got a strip of paper here, and when you bring it around on itself, if you make 1/2 twist like this, now you've got a Mobius strip. I've made a Mobius strip here and I've taped it together, and I've put a black line on one side and a red line on the other side. But you can see that where they meet, the black and the red line join, which means that a Mobius strip here is eternal. It's only got one side. It doesn't have two sides anymore. As soon as you make that half twist, right? So, here's side A, here's side B, and now we have side A on the outside and side B on the inside, but not when we make a half twist. Once we make a half twist, there's only side C, A and B together. Like this. It's eternal. It's a good metaphor for an eternal universe. And weird things happen if you start to cut it. This is the beauty. This is the fun. So if I cut it exactly in half, right? If I make a cut here, and I start cutting this thing in half, as I go through and start cutting it here, you can see that things get a little funky, because when I come all the way around to the point where I started here and snip it, now we have a double fold. We have double infinity here. It's like a double Mobius strip. Strange things happen. Hang on a second. Need to get some tape. So I'm going to take this strip again. I'm going to make another Mobius strip here. By the way, this is endless fun for a young boy nerd because there's all kinds of weird configurations that happen when you start to cut these in different configurations. It's highly weird. And the mathematics behind it is just mind-boggling and astounding, and trips you right back to all the math that describes what we currently see in our universe at large. So here we have another Mobius strip that's taped up together, and this time I'm going to cut it in thirds. So we're going to cut this in thirds, right? So here we go. 1/3, 1/3, 1/3, 1/3. See what's happening here? Look how they missed each other here. I've missed. It's not there anymore. So if I keep trying to cut, now I'm cutting it in half. The 1/3 ended up in the wrong half because this is an eternal loop that doesn't obey the normal laws that we expect. So here I am at the end again, bang. And now I have one Mobius strip here and a double Mobius strip attached to it in a loop. It's like a magic act. Look at that. They're linked together, and there's two of them. They're separate. Two separate. One is an eternal Mobius strip, and one is a double eternal Mobius strip with a double twist. Two Mobius strips is sort of in one. And if I cut it in fourths, more weird stuff happens. If I cut it in fifths, more weird stuff happens. It is a great little crazy thing to do. Children love it because they can't figure it out. When I cut that in thirds, all of a sudden I have two of them that are looped together somehow like this. It's like the magic act with the metal rings that come in and out. It's like, you know, whatever you think this is all about, it's bigger than your brain, so you can't figure it out by figuring, you know. But some of the greatest minds that have ever been alive here, David Bohm, I mean, God, he comes to mind. So here's another one who's, you know, grappled with these conundrums. And here's another guy who's no slouch. Another, Nobel Prize-winning physicist. And he was more into the metaphysical aspects. He's a physicist, and he's coming up with ideas that seem to be straight from, esoteric philosophy from the Vedas, where, here, let's see, Bohm advanced the view that quantum physics meant that the old Cartesian model of reality, Newtonian physics that we talk about, objective reality, that there are two kinds of a substance, the mental and the physical, that somehow interact. That's too limited. He didn't believe in that. To complement it, he developed a mathematical and physical theory of implicate and explicate order. This idea of implicate order was famous for him. He also believed that the brain, at the cell level, works according to the mathematics of some quantum effects, and postulated that thought is distributed and non-localized, just as quantum entities are. So this guy, Bohm, is the one who advanced the idea of the quantum mind, that a non-local aspect of consciousness in the quantum field that extended everywhere in the universe and is not localized to your brain. He's the one who put forth that the mind is not a byproduct of chemical or electrical reactions of neurons in the brain. Mind comes first, and the brain is an expression of what universal holographic mind is projecting. And what it's projecting is reality itself. that's this guy who's a Nobel Prize-winning physicist, not just somebody to blow off and say, no, that's stupid. The brain is a quantum mind, and that quantum mind is holographic, and it's everywhere. That's pretty cool. He's also the one. Here's holographic brain thing. Non-local, non-physical, holographic mind, where photons from the electromagnetic aspect of the universe hit consciousness, this quantum mind, and it splits it in half, just like a hologram. One goes to the object that is being created in the quantum field, that's a hologram, bounces off the mirror of your memories, and these two interact with each other and create reality as we know it in our own mind. Crazy as that stuff. Here, in some sense, man is a microcosm of the universe, like a hologram. Therefore, what man is a clue to the universe. We are enfolded in the universe. It's sort of all one thing. We've talked about this extensively. Many of these ideas were started by this guy, David Bohm. And he also postulated this idea that, something called classic geodesics, which is, when I talked before about the Big Bang, is whatever caused that Big Bang, if there ever was a Big Bang, because we discussed the fact that there might not have ever been a Big Bang. It's a steady universe. All of it depends on the red shift, which tells everybody that the universe is expanding. So first indications from physicists that when they look out at the cosmic background radiation, the CMB, they see that all the stars in the universe that we look at are moving away from us at a certain speed. Everybody's moving away from everybody else equally, which is kind of weird. And the only way that you kind of get your mind around that is a balloon with the universe painted on the outside of it, and that balloon is constantly expanding. So all of those would be expanding from the center and from each other as the balloon expanded. So this is like the Big Bang is here, the universe begins to expand in a sphere, and all the things cool out, and then they form galaxies and universes. Those galaxies and universes are still expanding from the Big Bang origin at the center, but they're also expanding from each other as the balloon gets bigger. And so when the physicists see that and that's a red shift. The red shift tells us that things are moving away. Blue shift, things are moving towards us. It's the Doppler effect. When I stand on a street corner and an ambulance goes by, the sound gets higher and higher and higher in pitch until it goes right past me, and then as it's moving away, the sound is lowering and lowering and lowering its pitch because of the speed of sound waves compacting as it comes towards me and stretching as it goes away from me. That's what photons are doing, and light is doing as it comes towards us or moves away. As it moves away, it shifts towards the red end of the spectrum, and that's why physicists think that the universe is expanding. And if it's expanding, why is it expanding? And so what they did was they took measurements from all these different representative stars and saw the trajectory of how they're moving away, and calculated it backwards to find out where do they come from. And it turns out they all come from a single source. They all trace back to one spot. That's the spot where the Big Bang took place, the explosion. And that's why the theory of the Big Bang arose, basically all from analyzing this thing called the redshift. But other physicists who don't necessarily buy the idea of the Big Bang, there are other interpretations of the redshift aside from just something moving away. The Doppler effect is not the only thing that could cause a redshift. And if you don't take that into account and you interpret the redshift differently, this is what Terence Witt was all about. His book, and goes through all the math of that, of what is the universe if the redshift means something else. Everything's different, including the proton and the neutron, and everything is different. But the basis of it is that it's all nothing. It's eternal. It never arose, and it will never demise. And the relationship of nothing to itself pops into existence, and that's all of this. We can see some of the deep influences of Bohm from his very close friendship with Krishnamurti, one of the most famous philosophers from India, about the nature of reality. I used to watch Krishnamurti. He used to be on television every week. Back in the 60s and the 70s. And he would just be sitting in a chair under a tree and talk about the most mind-blowing things you could ever imagine about the nature of reality, most of it through the lens of the Vedas and the most ancient texts in India. The sutras of Patanjali and all the things that are being talked about there about the nature of reality that now we see is being shown in quantum physics on a weekly basis with new research. So, of course, Bohm was interested in what this guy had to say because he was discovering the same thing with his math as a physicist in the laboratory. And, Krishnamurti was no slouch either. I mean, this guy was a heavily awarded philosopher of life, and respected all over the world. Krishnamurti was a force to be reckoned with. Philosopher, speaker. In his early life, he was groomed to be a New World teacher. He was deeply involved with the Theosophical Society, who saw him as an avatar. The Theosophical organization, his interests included the psychological revolution, nature of mind, meditation, human relationships. He stressed the need for a revolution in the psyche of every human being and emphasized that such a revolution cannot be brought about by any external entity, religious, political, or social. Essentially, what I'm saying here, behind the live streams, behind the concept of global mind link, that the world has been stolen by bad guys for so long, and they are so entrenched and have specifically solidified their position so it can't be challenged by controlling the media and controlling the courts and controlling the legislatures and buying politicians, and it's almost impossible to assail that edifice with the normal physical means at our disposal. We can't legislate these guys out. The only thing left is what Krishnamurti was talking about. It's the battle. World War III is on the inner plane. It's here, us, as spiritual warriors, aligning ourselves together with what we combine together from the ancient texts, from the Vedas and from the Sutras of Patanjali, almost 4,000 years old, and the I Ching, 5,000 years old from China, all talk about the same kind of thing. The idea that there's interaction between universal mind and all the beings that exist, which are little particles of that mind, little extensions, little pieces of that mind, all in one global networked mind of the grand big mind that I mention periodically. And you can tap into that big mind if you get enough numbers of conscious motes aligning together. And the more precise you can align them together, the more powerful that connection gets. And if you get a minimum number of those conscious motes, you and me and everybody else, aligned our consciousness to the same idea, that idea pops into existence. We shift the quantum field. essentially what he's talking about here. Anyway, so in oneself lies the whole world, and if you know how to look and learn, the door is there, and the key is in your hand. No one on earth can give you either the key or the door to open except yourself. And essentially it's because there's only one self with many little pieces. Everybody's got a piece of the key. And each piece of each key is unique. And all of those keys have to come together in a hyperdimensional puzzle where all the pieces have to be reassembled. And then you can unlock the door of higher dimensional contact where you can influence the next moment from now with consciousness itself. So when we look upon this idea of the Big Bang and all the things that science has told us what happens in the first microseconds, in the first minutes, in the first thousands of years and millions of years and billions of years to our present day. And the question of what was the origin of the Big Bang and where might it have come from? And we see that the elements of the periodic table come from stars like gold and silver and iron. They come from exploding stars. And this isn't just conjecture. This is something that we know is true. That the origin of the elements of the periodic table are the building blocks of everything that you are, that the world is, that my body is. A massive star near the end of its lifetime has an onion-like structure just prior to exploding as a supernova. And when it does, all of these elements spin out into the universe. And, they fall on our planet as meteors and asteroids and populate the whole universe with every element we see in the periodic table. And this particular periodic table, it shows us where every single element came from, right? The Big Bang nucleosynthesis, that's the black ones. So the very first things to form when the Big Bang happened was, hydrogen, over here helium, lithium. Those are the three that formed instantaneously when the Big Bang happened. But then all the rest of these dying low mass stars are the green. Exploding massive stars is this purple. So we can see exactly the origins of every mineral, every atom in the periodic table. Exploding white dwarfs, merging neutron stars, all kinds of interactions of stars exploding, crashing together, reaching their endpoints and dying. All of those, when they explode, form all of the elements that we see in the periodic table. Pretty mind-blowing. Wow, amazing. So now we see series of news reports. I'm getting these things through my news feeds all the time that continually blow my mind. I mean, this astrophysicist proposed a new twist on the Big Bang. Universe may have emerged from a black hole in a four-dimensional universe. This may be what the the edge of a black hole looks like. It could have been two universally large black holes that collided, and the explosion of that collision is us trapped forever in the event horizon of a infinitely large, black hole. That's pretty crazy. In their scenario, our universe emerged when a star in a four-dimensional universe collapsed into a black hole. In our three-dimensional universe, black holes have two-dimensional event horizons. That is, they are surrounded by a two-dimensional boundary that marks the point of no return, where light, matter, energy can't escape anymore. In the case of a four-dimensional universe, a black hole would have a three-dimensional event horizon. In other words, our universe was never inside the singularity. Rather, It came into being outside an event horizon protected from the singularity because we're just far enough out that we're not being sucked in. It originated as and remains just one feature in the imploded wreck of a four-dimensional star. So how's that for stretching your brain? You know, all of this could be the event horizon of a four-dimensional black hole. You know, there's more. It goes on and on. Big Bang Theory wrong. Star. They have discovered a star that's older than our whole universe. What? You know, they've aged our universe at 13.8 billion years, right? And now we're seeing this star, HD 140283, is older than our whole universe. Now we're talking right back to Roger Penrose, who postulated that a previous universe to ours collapsed and exploded. And his supposition was if that took place, there could be remnants of the previous universe that got sucked into ours when it exploded and remained. There could be ancient artifacts of ancient civilizations from previous universes projected into ours. But it's such a big universe, how are you going to find those? It's going to take maybe millions of years of exploration in the universe to find land on some planet someplace where you see, you know, ancient ruins of civilizations that are way more advanced than us, even at that time, that trace out to be older than our whole universe, which proves they're from some previous universe, you know. HD 140283. Here it is. And it's located close to the Pleiades and Sirius. And the thing about Sirius in particular, that's, you know, the Sirius star cluster is the one that is mapped out at the Great Pyramids of Cheops. The three main stars of Sirius have been shown to be extremely accurately aligned with the three main pyramids, the pyramids of Cheops. They align the same way. They reflect those three stars of Sirius. And is it any kind of, I don't know, accident or something that HD 140283, the oldest thing, and older than our universe, is there in that same region, that same zone? You know, there are many ancient monuments on Earth that reflect three pyramids in the configuration of the three main stars of Sirius, which tells many people who conjecture that Sirius might be the origin of life here on Earth, that our ancient ancestors, you know, ancient aliens idea came from Sirius and populated Earth and intermingled with the life forms here. But bottom line is there is a star they have seen that is older than our universe. So this all of a sudden crashes every idea we had and gives credence to the fact that our universe came from a previous universe that collapsed and exploded, and some of the particles spewed into here. That leads us to the next thing that I saw in Scientific American, the concept of time crystals. Now, time crystals sounds like something right out of a science fiction movie. I'm looking at the Scientific American article with the cover talking about time crystals. I'm going, what the hell are time crystals? What is that? I mean, so this concept of time crystals, you know, there's the analogy of a time crystal, the lattice structure of a crystal. Crystals are unique in the universe. Crystals have this lattice structure and a quantum aspect of the lattice structure that can hold information. the distortion of the lattice can get frozen there. That's why crystals can remember things, can hold information. When water forms itself into a quasi liquid crystal, one of the magical properties of water, and why our body is 70% water, we have the possibility of transforming water into liquid crystal. Liquid crystal has piezoelectric effects, and it has the ability to remember, to be programmed, to hold memories of things. And we see that in water. We can see, the experiments with Emoto, who showed that water will crystallize differently in the presence of different emotions or different intentions. That's pretty mind-blowing, but so what they're saying is that if a sound wave hits a quartz crystal, it distorts its lattice, but the lattice springs back. If you sustain that and create a standing wave, you deform the lattice structure in the crystal, and it remains. The crystal will be frozen in this new configuration, so it can remember the sound waves that have distorted its structure. If the sound waves are something like binaural beats, you now have a binaural beat generator frozen in the physical structure of the lattice of a crystal. And if you wear that crystal, it will entrain your brainwaves. I experimented with this 30 years ago by growing my own crystals in the presence of your fundamental tone. The crystal would grow in the shape of its lattice, would grow around the shape of the standing wave. You could intentionally, make that happen. But in, say, Berkeley University, there's this scientist, Norman Yao, who theorized the structure of these time crystals, says it's sort of like striking a bell. If you strike the bell, it'll reach a peak and then it will fade out. But a time crystal bell would ring eternally. It would always be reaching a peak and reaching a non-peak and reaching a peak and a non-peak in an oscillation that would go forever. It would always restart itself once you hit it. He also said it sort of more like poking, poking a tub of Jello, where, wouldn't it be super weird if you jiggled some Jello and you found that somehow it responded at a different period in time? It rejiggled itself and rejiggled itself forever. But in the essence, that is what a time crystal is. You insert an influence into a time crystal, and the time crystal over time fluctuates its lattice structure. Its lattice structure now is going into an oscillation state that never stops. Entropy, why the bell would reach a peak and then fade out to nothing. Entropy requires time. It takes time for the bell to eventually go down to zero. And entropy, like time, only goes in one direction, but not in the quantum field. Time goes forwards and backwards in the quantum field. So, something is happening at a level sort of below our universe, down among the bizarre subatomic world of quantum mechanics, where, time and space don't have the normal meaning that we see here. It's more bizarre than that. Classical time crystals could exist in nature, say physicists. So some of the experiments that have been done with time crystals, let's go back to this image here. Harvard University researchers, here's some of the experiments they did that proved time crystals. They balanced nitrogen and carbon atoms inside of a crystal lattice. The outcome was, to all appearances, a black diamond. Carbon, before it's compressed and becomes a diamond, is dark. It's like coal. But the size difference between nitrogen and carbon atoms created patches of empty space between them. These are called vacancies in science. These spaces were pulsed with lasers, which caused the nitrogen atoms to vibrate. Combined with the lattice-like structure of the crystal, this created a looped resonance that would not go away. We're talking about perpetual motion machines here. We're hitting the nitrogen atom with a laser and causing it to vibrate in a certain type of crystal. And the lattice of the crystal begins to oscillate, and it won't stop. It keeps going and going and going. University of Maryland, researchers there produced a similar effect with a different method. So what they did was they trapped and manipulated ytterbium ions, which is one of the elements of the periodic table, one of the exotic ones. Ytterium, ytterbium, it's a hard one to pronounce. So they're manipulating ytterbium ions with lasers. And despite all the energy of the lasers, the ions wouldn't heat up like you would expect. They should be getting hot. They should be melting. Thermodynamics was suspended somehow. I mean, one of the basic laws of physics, thermodynamics, is not working here. Berkeley's University, Norman Yao, who theorized the structure of these crystals, says the crystals are inherently what's called out of equilibrium, unable to reach a state of rest. This is a new phase of matter, period. But it is also, really cool because it's one of the first examples of a non-equilibrium state of matter. A new state of matter called a time crystal, because it distorts repetitively in time forever. Once you initiate what's going on. Time crystals, new form of matter, once thought to break the laws of physics created by scientists. Strange materials repeat a crystal-like structure in the fourth dimension, time, rather than just in space. Wow. It's official. Time crystals are a new state of matter, and researchers have created one in real life. How did scientists create time crystals? Two teams, I just talked about that. One led by the researchers at the University of Maryland, did so with ions, electrically charged atoms, of the element ytterbium. You see how difficult that is right there? They applied an electrical field to levitate the ions above the surface, then hit the atoms with a laser pulse repeatedly at regular rhythm. This caused the atoms to flip over in a pattern that repeated over time. The resulting behavior, time crystals. The other team, led by scientists from Harvard and Princeton, created an artificial lattice in a synthetic diamond. They then used microwaves to disturb the impurities at regular intervals. This also led to time crystal oscillations. A new phase of matter known as time crystals observed interacting for the first time. For the first time ever, scientists have witnessed the interaction of a new phase of matter known as time crystals. Mind-blowing. And the implications for this is the crystals in our own body, in particular the dominant crystal of all crystals in our body, are the crystals that form in the pineal gland, called brain sand because they're so minute. The pineal gland is small. It's the size of a grain of rice. center of your brain. It's, associated with the crown chakra. It's associated with cosmic consciousness, waking up. It also produces melatonin, and only into the cerebral spinal fluid, which is an electrolyte that charges the brain and nervous system. So it's thought, and it's said in ancient literatures, that there was a special organ, a spiritual organ, that charged the brain at moments of self-realization. And it's also the only thing that they ever saw when they were studying LSD back in the 60s. The only thing that LSD could see to cause as a physical effect was massive levels of melatonin excreted from the pineal gland into the cerebral spinal fluid. So definitely there's a relationship between self-awareness, expanded states of consciousness, activating the pineal gland, which is a crystal, a little tiny crystal. And crystals have piezoelectric effects, and they have a lattice structure. Another dimension of the crystals in the pineal gland could be that these are time crystals, that consciousness makes their lattice resonate, and they go into a perpetual oscillation in time. So time crystals become a perpetual oscillation that acts like a crystal radio set, where we have a radio receiver in the pineal gland in the form of time crystals that is not only communicating in space but in time as well. Our own private little time machine with quantum effects, the center of our brain, associated with expanding consciousness in time and space. This little area, our own sort of wormhole, and closely aligned with the hypothalamus and the eyeballs, and governing awakening and sleep cycles. The Egyptians paid a lot of attention to the pineal gland and the hypothalamus. But the idea that in the center of our brains we have some amazing new form of matter that's just now being discovered, these time crystal ideas in the center of the pineal gland, that gives our consciousness the ability to go freely throughout time and space, all melded together in some quantum field here, where we have the possibility of changing reality itself by collapsing time and space together into the present moment, and then shifting our idea about what the next moment is going to be. That's what we're up to here. That's what this is all about. That's why we're here. To use science, entrainment, binaural beats, synchronization of the hemispheres, everybody listening to the same track at the same time, bringing all of our conscious states to precisely align together by science to the same spot. And now if we can police our idea about what we want the world to be, which is what we've been talking about for a year, what do you want the world to be? And since that's not something the small mind can really be trusted to understand, it's best to release this mind and open this mind up to the universe at large in time and space, to load that vision into me. There is a blueprint in the universe of the perfectly functioning universe and my part in it. I need to get in touch with what that is. So that's what we're doing today. Today, we are focus is to open to having a vision of what perfection in the universe looks like, loaded into us from the blueprint of the infinite universe itself that we are a part of. Take the barriers out of the way, open the heart of the deep unconscious at a quantum level to receive what that idea is, so that we can help to birth that idea and reform the reality that we're experiencing into something ever more perfect for all of us. With that said, here we go. Close your eyes and prepare. Here's where you can get that soundtrack. I would like to put out a new idea for this group. First, I'd like to welcome all the new people. We just hit last week 14,000 subscribers to my new YouTube channel. There's over 15,000 that follow, but subscribing is a different thing. We have an equal amount, I think, in Instagram, 15,000, something more like 13,000 with Facebook. That's a lot of people. I want 1 million people. Tell everybody you know who you think would be interested in these kind of ideas that would benefit, or who you know has a piece of the puzzle, who's astute enough, smart enough to get it, to get the quantum idea, to get what we're talking about here, and not think it's complete madness. And even if it is, it's a good chance to take anyhow. If there's a payoff, if it's real. I believe it's real. Quantum physicists believe it's real. Ancient literatures on Earth, the Upanishads and the Sutras of Patanjali and the I Ching and the Vedas think it's real. It's worth a chance to give it a try and see if we can actually do something instead of sit around and whine and complain and be stressed. Stress goes away when you're on purpose and doing something. New people, you've got access to all the previous live streams. Go there, watch them. There's a lot, I know, but each one of these builds on information from the one before and fleshes the story out. So there's a lot of information there. I make mention here and there of things, but I spend a whole live stream on fleshing that out in the past. So here in the comments section, this new idea I'd like to put forward is, instead of just once a week where we all align ourselves together, I know that most of the people here are listening every single day to this soundtrack, at least once a day, with headphones on, until the next week shows up. And it would behoove us if we could all listen every day at the same time. And then we'd reproduce this. You don't need me here talking to you in order to all of us align and put our headphones on at exactly the same time every day and listen to the soundtrack for this week. We all align once more. We could multiply this effect by 7 times, 1 octave, if we did that. So I'm open to suggestions from everybody, and the crowd here is from all over the world, Europe and Asia and South America and even in Russia, China. We have people from all over the world in all kinds of different time zones. So picking a spot that's will be a common time that could work for everyone is what I'm looking for. So please drop a suggestion in the Ask a Question section here. Drop a suggestion of what time you think could work for you. A range of time that could work for you. If I can align all this together, I can announce that next week. Let's take it as a task together to listen to the soundtrack once a day at this time. Some people it's going to be late in the evening, some people it's going to be early in the morning, whatever that is. We know that we'll all be aligned together at the same time. So send your suggestions and let's see what that comes up with. Meantime, until next time, next Sunday is also going to be on Monday, because I'm currently teaching my biotuning practitioners workshop. That was last weekend, and that's going to be, yesterday, and it's going to be next weekend, Saturday and Sunday, so this gets moved to Monday, and the week after that, we'll be back to normal on Sunday. So next week, it's going to be Monday. Thank you all very much for being here. It's my honor and my privilege to have you, particularly those who have been here for the whole trip. Welcome to the new people. Tell as many people as you know. Spread the word. Thank you very much. See you